Hi, I'm Bonnie Miller, and I'm here today to talk about my paintings in the Tacoma Community College Juried Art Show. I was particularly grateful that the three paintings actually are about two different series that I've done that seem very disparate on the surface, but in actuality, in the underlying ways, they are tied together by story. I have found that in my work, telling story or suggesting a story so that the viewer can think about a story going on is something that I like. And in the pictures of the landscape, they originated last year when I drove across central Washington from Spokane to Seattle. I grew up in Spokane, and I've always resonated with the landscape there and with the basalt rock in particular. There was rock all around my neighborhood. I grew up hiking up hills that had basalt rock, giant boulders, caves, and the dryness of the grasses and the scent of the pines and everything are still evoke that time in my life and remind me of the stories that go with that. And as I drove across, it was early summer and the crops and things were growing around Moses Lake and then coming into the foothills of the Cascades. I was reminded again of how much I love the landscape that is there. So the two paintings that I have in that series that are here, the first one that you're seeing is called Coulee Country, and is about the basalt formations that are all around the middle of the state that were formed ages and ages ago by lava, and are now often dry coulees without water. And this is one of those that references that. The second one is called The Potholes, and the potholes is an area that holes formed, and then they were small lakes. And in time, it was made into a reservoir. And today, there's a lot of little islets out of willow and grass and rock and sand there. And I became acquainted with the potholes many years ago when my husband and I kayaked there. And the magic of it is that it's like its own wilderness, because you can't always tell where you are because it changes as the year goes by. As it dries out and the water recedes, you see more of the land, and then in the spring it's flooded more and it's much more watery, and it's easy to get lost. So I thought that if with this painting there's that sense of inlets and outlets and places that go through the rock that reveal the rock underneath, and then yet the way that the reservoir is used also as a reservoir for farming and irrigating the land, and thus the use of green here. And I really enjoyed painting this because it did evoke so many parts of the geography of Washington for me that I don't often think of living on the West Coast. I live in Puyallup, so I don't see this kind of rock. And even going up in the mountains on the west side, you don't see basalt. It isn't until you get east of the mountains that you run into this kind of landscape. And so it was fun for me to paint these and to go back to thinking about all the ways that basalt is used, especially in Spokane, in the parks, and the houses. You see facings of basalt, bridges made out of basalt, and the edges of the river show it. So this really became a kind of a theme for me. And it has also, in the potholes, it's wonderful for birding because there is water, whereas so much of it down towards the Columbia River is dry land, and it's different. It doesn't draw the migrations of birds that the potholes does. So it's a famous birding area in Washington State as well. The other piece that I have came about actually from some drawing I did last winter during COVID. I was feeling very isolated, and I got corresponding with a couple art friends. They both live in Puyallup, as do I, but we had a kind of a painting challenge or a drawing challenge that we posed for each other, that we were supposed to come up with one a week, and then we would send them to each other, and we all have a sense of humor and started making up stories about these drawings we were doing. And mine often involved people. They involved my dog, and my friends also had landscapes, but then they sometimes put people or houses in, and we'd add to these stories as though they were real, and would react to each other and play off each other. And it was really fun for us. And I hadn't drawn people for quite a long time. In the past, my drawings of people have often come about through incidents in my life or from just happenstance. All my painting comes from my imagination. I don't reference photographs or real things. I do, though, reference the emotions that I think are present for me from the stories in these things. And I hope it is the emotions that come through. So this spring, I thought, I'm just going to loosen up and see if I can make some of these characters that were in my cartoons come alive more in a larger format. And I started doing that, and people just started appearing, and I call them my characters. They're like people I'd like to run into, or people that appear and they have something to say. Sometimes I will start, and this was true in the past too, I would start an abstract painting, and suddenly I would see the suggestion of a figure or a face, and I'd think, who's that? And why is that person there? And then I would start turning it into a figure, and the figures would develop in those moments, maybe from turning the painting upside down. I had one that I thought it was purely objective painting and or non-objective, and I turned it upside down, and I thought I saw an ear, and I thought, an ear, that there must be a person attached to that ear, and it ended up being something like this. So this is kind of a new series for me, and as I've been doing it, I've again like to suggest in each one that there's a story going on. And I try to indicate that through the titles. This one is called And Then He Said. And in the others also, I like to include something in the painting that makes you think about, well, why is that person there with this truck? Or what is that bird or butterfly doing coming at their face, and why are they looking at it like that? And it's really been a lot of fun for me, because sometimes I have labored over my more traditional paintings in trying to make them more artful. And I don't try to make these artful. I just try to make them come alive. And so I was really happy when this one got accepted into the show. My painting process is often, because it comes from impressions and rather than from things that I'm looking at, I don't start out usually with the exact thing in mind, and they develop as I paint. So I find I'm more successful, especially with these paintings of pictures, if I don't have it too clear in mind when I begin, and I let it work on its own and come about by the lines and things that get started in the painting early on. Sometimes I've done abstracts that have been quite a ways along, and suddenly the figure appears. And then I have to decide whether or not I want to go with that, or whether I want to pursue going with a non-objective painting. So I'm trying to sort back and forth between those right now. And in a way, it's about not worldly realism, but emotional realism for me. The lines or shapes are the things that suggest the faces. Sometimes I think what goes on becomes a little strange, and so do my friends think that, but that's okay with me for now. I like strange. And I don't know where this will lead or how long I'll stay with it, but for right now, it's making me have fun, and I'm really happy about that.